Move over, haunted houses. This is a haunted spaceship. That sounded better in my head. SYFY's Nightflyers, Season 1, spoiler-free review. Hey y'all, it's your Twisted Girl next door here, and today I am doing a spoiler-free review of SYFY's new horror science fiction show, Nightflyers, from George R.R. Martin. You know, that guy that gave us Game of Thrones. So yeah, this is completely spoiler-free. This is mainly for people who haven't seen the show, might have seen only episode 1 and aren't sure if they want to keep continuing with it and whatnot and what forth. And so I wanted to kind of give an overview of the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to this horror science fiction show. Okay, so the plot of Nightflyers is a space crew goes out into the void looking to make alien contact in hopes of curing a plague on Earth. Unfortunately, the ship seems to be haunted as people start dying and other bad happenings go on. My overall feeling vibe when it comes to Nightflyers is that it has a lot of potential in terms of the plot line, in terms of everything that's going on, but it's also a show that's filled with a lot of tropes. I don't know if that's possibly because when Nightflyers, which was originally a novella by George R.R. Martin, was first written, it was like some 20 odd years ago, when the kind of characters and things that we find in this show weren't necessarily like a regular phenomenon. And so by the time it comes out in 2018 as this series, I don't know if the series creators did a good job of adding something different and new to what has in a way become kind of overused tropes when it comes to certain characters, certain types of plot lines. Then you may feel like, okay, from the very first episode and even the second episode, you can probably have a guess of the way things are going to go when it comes to this series, and most likely be completely right. But there were definitely some jump scares. There were definitely some scary moments because this is a fusion of horror and science fiction, of course. So with that, there were some scary moments that definitely, when those scary moments happened, you were kind of reminded as to what could make this show really awesome. One pro was the acting. I think there were some really quality actors in this show, some familiar faces that we've seen in other TV shows and movies. And because of that, they really, I think, with this, they kind of carried the series because, like I said, there's a lot of tropes, there's a lot of script and dialogue that is paint by the numbers when it comes to kind of the science fiction genre. And so because of that, you're going to need good actors to sell this. I think if it was too tech heavy, and this is the thing of science fiction meets horror, and why, you know, in the past, as George R.R. Martin said, you know, the challenge was people saying that you couldn't mix the two genres, is that science fiction tends to be big and bold and tech heavy, while horror tends to be more intimate and less tech heavy and less big and bold, and you need the intimacy to be able to strike fear sometimes. And so you have these kind of what could seem like polar opposite genres in terms of the atmospheres they need, in terms of how they can be executed, coming together. And I think that the show did a good job of melding those two, where it felt very intimate on the spaceship. Now, in the extreme version of that, it can make you feel like it wasn't even a spaceship, that maybe they are all just in some big factory, because it didn't seem like there was a huge amount going on. But I think it worked for what they were trying to give off. The overall plot is a strong point. I'm talking about the overall plot, the overarching whole thing of them trying to make alien contact and what the mystery is behind that. Is there alien life forms out there? Is that a possibility? When the show focuses on that bigger plot that kind of connects everything together, it really shines. And I think maybe that's because of the source material, that they had all of that to work with, to kind of maneuver, and it just really lands very well when that is the focus. Okay, so one con was the pacing. This is about a 10-episode season. And I think we're in this age when you have shorter seasons now, and when there's shorter seasons, I think you need to do more in each episode, right? You don't get the chance of like 22 episode seasons like on network television where you can have like 5 or 6 filler episodes or 5 or 6 episodes where things just don't happen until like the very end. And I think this show suffered from, I may be believing it was a 22 episode season, I don't know, where there were just moments where it was like nothing's happening. Or there was like one episode where they kind of went off on a tangent, it felt like. I mean, eventually I guess it connected back to the main plot line, but it felt like a tangent. I'm like, with 10 episodes and this big mystery going on, do you really have time for a side plot? And so the pacing at times would be one episode, so much would be happening, and it would be really great. Almost kind of erratic, but it would work. And then there would be other episodes where it slowed down so much, and you were just like, okay, what happened? We just had last episode where there was so much going on, and now not much is happening. I'm going to say the characters were a little bit of a con, and mainly because, like I said, but earlier, if you know these archetypes of characters, like the tough girl, the smart chick, the shy girl who's kind of a wallflower, but eventually grows into being something more cool, the very business-orientated scientist who's so one track when it comes to his mission, the comedy relief. There's a lot of that going on. And if you've seen it before, there's nothing wrong with tropes. Like I've said, there's nothing wrong when there's a lot of tropes if you can add something to it that makes it its own. You know, we have shows where boy meets girl, girl fall in love with boy. That's tried and true. And if it's not broke, don't fix it. But in that same vein, you have to make it unique. And I think, unfortunately, at least in some of a good majority of the episodes, a lot of these characters fell into these tropes without much charm to them, without being able to kind of make it so they stood out or against the regular archetype that they were clearly made to fit. The other con is the crew dynamic. Once again, like I said, and it probably falls a little bit more into, like I was saying, about the characters. The interactions with the characters. You get 10 episodes and you have these people in space for almost 2 years together. I think that was the span of the trip, or at least it's a good year that these 10 episodes take place on. And I didn't really feel the camaraderie amongst them. My big con, and this is so hard for me to say as someone who usually loves these kind of subplots in genre shows, was the romances. Oh my gosh. They were not good. The romances, none of these romances were very believable, unfortunately. And they felt more like distractions than really necessary for the plot. And like I said, that's very hard for me to say because I usually love shipping. I love the ship characters in shows. Oh my gosh, I love it so much. And so it was very hard for me to watch a show where there would be the subplot of these characters hooking up or falling in love. And I put that in quotes because people were saying, I love you. And I was just like, I don't believe you. I just don't, you didn't earn this. We didn't earn this. And so when those things would happen, I'd be like, okay, can we fast forward to the main plot line? That would be okay if it wasn't the focus. But there were episodes where a good amount of focus was put on the romances. Breakout performance of season 1 of Nightflyers was definitely the spider robot. Yes, there's a spider robot, and it's glorious. One warning/trigger warning when it comes to this show is that there is a suicide. I think that's it. Like I said, I do give trigger warnings and warnings because I think as a reviewer, it is my responsibility to you as a potential viewer that there is a suicide that happens. And so if that's not your thing, you may not want to watch this show. I think this is conditionally stab approved. Now, I'm going to say it's not stab approved in and of itself if this was the only season and I didn't have hope that there was going to be a season 2. But if it's going to be a season 2, there's a lot of potential there with this show. There's a lot of potential. Like I said, there's some really great moments in this series, but unfortunately at times it focuses on things that aren't great moments. And I think if you want to start something with potential, then you can watch this. If you're like, I can't sit through it on potential alone, then no, you probably shouldn't watch this show. Okay, so have you watched Nightflyers, or do you have some recommendations for science fiction horror shows that I should check out? Let me know. Comment down below. And also, be sure to subscribe so that you are the first to know when I post my videos of all things horror. Thanks for watching. Let's get creepy together.